something that we can work with the legislature to achieve quickly. Our state's budget is out of balance at the current time. And if this were to extend for any lengthy period of time, we would be increasing that lack of balance by about $35 million per month. And so I'm going to be urging the legislature to take quick action on this. As I said, if there are other ideas that they want to bring forth other than what I'm suggesting here, we will consider them. But I think quick action is called for.
What happens to the horse racing industry in Ohio? Do you have any sense of whether or not they can hang on for another couple of years until they get slots, or?
You know, I don't have the ability to be an accurate prognosticator regarding the future of the horse industry in Ohio as a result of the postponement or the inability to initiate VLTs. I'm sure that would depend upon the individual tracks and their financial circumstances, and so it's hard for me, impossible for me to really answer that.
And
Judge, if Mr. Seeking from the Ohio Supreme Court, would that relate only to slots, or could it be any form of gambling?
I'm sorry?
The judgment that you're seeking from the Ohio Supreme Court, would that relate only to VLTs, or could
No,
it be
the judgment
expanded
that
to?
I'm seeking from the court would be a clarification regarding my authority as governor through our lottery commission to implement the VLTs at our racetracks.
Just the VLT plan?
A rather prescribed decision.
Governor, is the budget elsewhere sliding? One of the issues that's come up and has happened in the past is that even without this 851 or 930, however the number is, even without that, every time a projection's been made, those projections have said, if this fix is put in place, are you concerned that the projections in the budget right now potentially are still inadequate?
Well, let me share a bit of good news with you. My understanding is, and the OBM director can clarify this, but my understanding is that over the last 3 months of revenue, we have met or slightly exceeded our projections. I believe 1 month we exceeded projections by $8 million. So we are cautiously optimistic that the economy is going to perform consistent with our projections. We hope, perhaps even in a more positive way than we projected.
Governor, have you considered the tax freeze previously? Was that something that you considered before you decided to go with the VLTs?
I have been committed to protecting the tax reform that was enacted before I became governor. I believe that it has resulted in Ohio having the most attractive tax climate in the Midwest. I believe it can and will lead to economic growth and further investment in Ohio. And I think anyone who has observed what I've done over the last several months understands that I have been committed to that. And that's why I have made the decision that I've made. As I said, I think the action that I am suggesting keeps intact the structure of the tax reform.
So it was a last resort?
It was the result of the Supreme Court ruling that deprived me of VLT resources in this budget, and I was confronted with either slashing education, which I think would have been the worst possible course of action, or taking the action that I've suggested to you this morning.
Was there ever any consideration looking at the cat tax?
Well, we tried to have an open mind and look at everything. And I think the cat tax, in my judgment, would have been among the very worst options that we could have chosen. I think it would have been perceived as a break in faith with the business community. I think it was just, in my judgment, not a viable option and not one that should be pursued. But did we consider it? We tried to consider everything.
Governor, if the court says yes, you do have the authority to put slots at racetracks, do you plan to do so, and at what point?
Well, I would not plan to do so to get resources for this biennial budget. I have felt that this situation that resulted as a result of the court's decision called for us to deal with the imbalance in our budget as quickly as possible, because we are, as I said, in a situation where our budget is not now in balance. I'm not prepared to speculate what I will or will not do, but it is almost a certainty that the court resolution regarding the legal matter that I described to you would not be resolved for probably many months. And so it's impossible to know exactly when that resolution or clarification would be forthcoming from the court.
Does the court have to decide this now with you not presently moving forward with plans to implement it?
I think the fact that I am saying that I want the VLT option to be available to me as governor for possible implementation in the future, according to my legal fellow. Ken, do you want to speak to that?
So the governor indicated that the intent would be to pursue a declaratory judgment action, which is the means by which you resolve a genuine legal dispute among parties. It does have to be a genuine legal dispute. The courts are unwilling to render just advisory opinions about legal questions. But this seems to be a pretty good genuine legal dispute as to whether the governor actually has the authority to proceed in this way. So he would have to express an intent to proceed and then go to the court and say, do I in fact have the authority or not?
Yes?
It was difficult for you to reverse your position on the VLTs. When you've been around the block, you know how the opposition is going to portray this next year. They're going to say, you flipped on VLTs and you flip-flop now on taxes. Yeah. How will you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I have been in many political campaigns, Joe, and a good friend of mine, Dick Ephart, gave me some advice when I was a beginning congressman. He said, Ted, when you run for election, your opponent will say all manner of things against you and about you, regardless of what you do. So he said, the best thing to do is the best you can, make the best decision you can, and then live with the decisions you made. I think that's good advice. Contrary to what some may think, I don't spend most of my life thinking about an election and what my opponents may or may not say about me. And so that's not something that I have spent a lot of time thinking about to this point. But I think I've got a good record. I think our administration has done some wonderful things, and I could talk about our energy policy. I could talk about health care for kids. I could talk about reforming schools. I could talk about holding down tuition for our college kids. I'll have a lot to talk about, and my opponent will have a lot to talk about, and people will make the ultimate decision. And so I can assure you that this decision was not made after contemplating whether or not someone may say something negative about me. I expect that to happen.
The option